Deep in a remote Siberian forest, a hunter experiences one of the most terrifying nights of his life, as someone or something stalks his camp. A woolly mammoth-looking beast was filmed trudging through a Siberian river, and a fireball ripped across the sky, exploding so bright it turned night into day. These are concerning things captured on camera in Siberia. Some people say this is one of the spookiest forest videos they've ever seen. Sergei is a Russian hunter who is out in the East Siberian taiga, one of the most vast, inhospitable forests in the world. He'd grown up hearing eerie stories about it and had been warned not to venture into the forest himself, especially not alone. But being an experienced hunter and explorer, he was pretty sure of himself and set out for a hunt, deciding to bring a camera along to document everything for his YouTube channel. Well, once he set up camp for the night, he noticed this strange metallic whistling sound echoing through the trees. This goes on for a while, and then we hear what sounds like a man yelling. Listen really closely here. Did you hear that, like, Gah! Doesn't sound like any animal I've ever heard of. But again, this is a very remote forest, and Sergei had hiked pretty deep at this point, so the chances of someone else being out in his general vicinity were slim. It's still possible. Even so, why were they screaming? Rather freaked out at this point, Sergei moves a little closer to the sound to get a better listen. At this point, he decides it's probably best to leave, so he heads back to camp to grab his stuff. The story is nowhere near over, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna have to split it up, and it's taken up 2 spots on the list. So as Sergei makes his way back out the forest, his worst fear becomes a reality. Whatever that thing out there in the trees is, it's following him. He starts hearing all these eerie whooping sounds, and they're getting closer. But then he hears this, and I gotta say, my pants would have fallen off from all the bricks I'd be filling them up with at this point. Take a listen to this.
Oh.
Not only does a twig snap close by, but it sounds like someone is laughing not too far away. Notice how heavy Sergei's breathing is now too. You can tell adrenaline is just pumping through his body. He's in full flight or fight mode at this point. So he decides to climb a tree to get away from whoever or whatever is down below, and the eerie noises just continue. It sounds like there's an old lady laughing or crying down there, utterly terrifying. So Sergei then fires into the air to try and scare the thing off. He sits up in that tree for a while, periodically firing into the air as the odd sounds continue. Eventually, though, the sun comes up and he heads home after one of the most terrifying nights of his life. What was out there stalking him? Was it a person, a bunch of people, some sort of animal that could mimic human speech? Who the hell knows? All I know is that this is one of the creepiest paranormal themed forest videos I've ever seen. Back in 2012, this grainy video popped up online. It shows what looks like a woolly mammoth walking through a river in Siberia. At the time, the news reported that the footage was captured by a Russian government engineer in a desolate area of Siberia. It really looks like a mammoth with shaggy brown hair and looks like a long trunk. Plus, if I had to pick one place on the planet where mammoths might still be roaming around, it would be rural Siberia. The area is just so vast and mostly unexplored, but it's also very possible this is a bear with a fish in its mouth, giving the illusion of a trunk. But what do you all think? Share your thoughts down below. A couple years ago, a video was captured of something in the sky over Krasnoyarsk, a city in Siberia with over 1 million people. Around 8 p.m., a giant fireball shot across the sky. People caught it on dash cams and CCTV, and the videos went viral. You could see this insanely bright streak flying fast, then exploding high above the ground. A fireball is basically a meteor, but way brighter than usual. Most meteors are tiny, like pebbles that burn up in the atmosphere and barely make a streak of light. Fireballs are bigger chunks of space rock. The ones that explode mid-air are called bolides. That's what everyone saw in Krasnoyarsk. Meteors hit the atmosphere crazy fast, anywhere from 25,000 to 160,000 miles per hour. Most of them just burn up and disappear, but if they're big enough, they can survive the trip through the air and hit the ground as meteorites. Russia has a history of this happening. In 2013, a huge meteor exploded in the sky. The blast was so bright it outshone the sun, broke windows, and injured hundreds of people. And of course, even crazier was the Tunguska event in 1908. Something exploded over Siberia with hundreds of times the power of the Hiroshima bomb, flattening over 80 million trees. Back in 2016, this weird piece of footage was shared online, showing a giant glowing sphere hovering over a field near Novosibirsk. The video was captured by Roman Tregubov, a grad from Novosibirsk State Technical University. You could see the sphere hovering just above the horizon, then slowly gliding across the field before disappearing into nearby woods. Roman told the press, quote, "It is very rare, yet it can appear anywhere. I was astonished to see a fireball lightning of such size, and not just that, but to catch the whole process from the beginning until the end." A lot of people were pretty confused by this explanation. A lot of commenters pointed out that most ball lightning is tiny, maybe a few meters at most, and usually disappears pretty fast. This orb was several meters wide and stayed intact as it glided across the field. Still, few viewers agreed with Roman, but even they admitted that ball lightning usually dissipates a lot faster than it did here. Back in November of 2014, the sky lit up over the city of Resh. It was crazy bright. The extra weird part was no sound, just this huge flash. Some folks thought it might have been a meteor, but the Siberian Times reported that a, quote, local observatory indicated nothing fell from the sky on the day of the flash. Police also weighed it, saying it could have been a ground explosion, but the most likely explanation turned out to be military related. Journalists suggested the military was probably burning expired gunpowder. Since no sounds were heard and the authorities didn't try to cover anything up, it was unlikely to be a meteor or a nuke. Back in 2017, people in northern Siberia saw something that freaked a lot of them out: a glowing orb floating in the sky. Photographers were out trying to capture the aurora borealis when the strange light appeared. Sergei Anasimov told the press, "At first, I was taken aback for a few minutes, not understanding what was happening. The glowing ball rose from behind the trees and moved in my direction." Anisimov thought it might have been some kind of searchlight, but other folks threw out aliens, a portal to another dimension, out as possibilities. Some people looked up and thought the world was just ending. Well, there actually is a solid explanation for this one. The orb was actually caused by Russian missile tests. They fired a Topol intercontinental ballistic missile, plus 3 others from submarines. Astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell told the news 4 ballistic missiles were launched, and at least one of them was widely observed. There's no doubt about the identification of these observations with the missile tests, end quote. But even with that explanation though, what an incredible sight. I mean, that thing just looks nuts. Back in 2013, a 12-year-old Russian schoolboy claimed he captured a Yeti-like creature on camera. The footage has become pretty well known in Bigfoot circles. Yevgeny Anisimov was walking in the woods with 2 friends when he spotted a huge blurry figure in the trees. When it turned toward them, they bolted. Igor Burtsev, director of the International Center of Hominology in Moscow, called the footage, quote, real and not falsified, and said it stood in a typical pose with its back slightly bent and its long arms down. He also noted the tracks in the snow were very interesting, not only long, but large. It looks like it first walked toward the village and then walked back in its own footprints, end quote. The sighting happened about 18 miles from a coal mining city in Siberia. Burtsev said the boys had been following a chain of huge tracks when they suddenly saw the creature about 50 meters away. Burtsev claimed experts had checked the video and that it was the first time in modern Russian history someone filmed a Yeti so clearly. But DNA tests of the hair samples from the area later found they came from a horse, a raccoon, and an American black bear, not a Yeti. Still, Birds have insisted there was a, quote, gigantic body of evidence suggesting Yetis exist in Siberia. What do you all think of this one, though? Share those comments down below. The Dyatlov Pass incident gets talked about a lot, and for good reason. It's one of the creepiest unsolved mysteries ever documented, but there's a theory that it wasn't an avalanche or even some government conspiracy behind the deaths of the hikers, but Yeti. And this idea stems from this photo, one of the last taken by the group. Could it just be one of the hikers? Of course, but considering the brutal, violent way these people died and the kind of darkness of this figure, something creepy about it, I mean, I don't know, it does make you wonder if something was stalking them. For context, back in 1959, 9 hikers died in the Ural Mountains under incredibly strange circumstances. Their tent had been ripped open from the inside. Some were found almost naked in freezing temperatures. The bodies showed signs of a lot of trauma. One hiker was even missing a tongue. It looked like the campsite had been completely ransacked. The avalanche theory, that doesn't really explain all this. The way the bodies were found, the injuries, it almost feels like something deliberately attacked them. And it's not like there haven't been reports of hairy, Bigfoot-like creatures in that area. Also up in Siberia, there's a massive hole in the ground called the Batagaika Crater. It's the largest permafrost crater in the world, a hole in the frozen ground over 100 meters deep, or about 328 feet. And it's still getting bigger. The crater started forming after the surrounding forest was cleared in the 60s, which caused the permafrost to thaw. Flooding and landslides have made it expand even faster. Mary Edwards from the University of Southampton described how the crater keeps growing, saying, "As more of the material at the bottom of the slope melts and comes loose, a large face is exposed to the air, which in turn increases the speed of permafrost thawing. Basically, the walls collapse, more ground is exposed, and then it all melts faster, starting the cycle over again every year. But as scary as a giant hole in the ground opening up is, it's also revealing a lot. Scientists have found Ice Age fossils around the rim, remnants of ancient animal remains like woolly mammoths. It also tells us a lot about the hundreds of thousands of years of climate history here. With all that said, though, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, next time.